reflects his conviction that dialogue can serve as a powerful catalyst for personal growth, mutual understanding, and social progress. Through this work, he seeks to inspire hope, confidence, and critical reflection, while encouraging individuals to take conscious and purposeful action to create positive change within their communities. Dames en heren, laat hem hartelijk welkom voor zijn presentatie over conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming him as he shares his insights on conversation. Mr. Bakari.
Pleasant good morning.
Good morning.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge the support of Ms. Nishma Barros, the head of the International Relations Department, who was the person who okayed the request to have this event. I would like to acknowledge the team, particularly Mr. Dennis Chilafat and the library staff, for working assiduously in making today possible. And to the general university community, the president, provost, faculty and staff, students, it is my pleasure and I express deep appreciation for this opportunity to speak with you here this morning. So, I see myself as a global citizen who was born in Trinidad and Tobago, but who has a responsibility to do all within my power and ability to make the world a better place. And one of the ways in which we can make the world a better place is by promoting literacy. We in the Caribbean, South American continent of which we belong, it is important that we tell our stories. It is important that we recall our experiences, past, present, and also make projections for the future. If we do not tell our stories, somebody else will report on it, and it might not be a proper account of our true experience. So I would like to encourage all those who are listening to me and our great icon, Calypsonian, the Mighty Sparrow, has a song where he said, age is a number. So once you're in good health, mentally and physically, you can continue to contribute. So if you never wrote anything as yet, the opportunity still exists for you to record what your experience has been and share it with the world. It is very important that we encourage, Caribbean literacy, increasing literacy, because we know we have a big problem even at the tertiary level, where many students are not too keen to read. They will read for the exams. They will read to do an assignment, but they do not view reading as a developmental tool, right? And it's important that we could try to inculcate that, and by encouraging people to read as widely as is possible. Because at the end of the day, if we want to make the Caribbean and South America stronger, we need to improve our literacy, we need to improve our functionality in life, our productivity, and we need to build indigenous institutions and execute indigenous practices that reflect our true reality. So having said all of that, in the context of why we are here this morning, in terms of this book, Conversations, this book was written about 10 years ago, but the content is still relevant. I had the opportunity to launch it throughout Trinidad and Tobago, in Grenada, in St. Lucia, and in Guyana, at the Public Library in Guyana. So I'm very thankful that Suriname, fellow South American country, has given me the opportunity to speak about this book this morning. You will agree with me that the more we can have conversations, we are creating the platform to produce ideas and to also add clarity to whatever situation we are dealing with. We have the old statement, two heads are better than one. If you have different minds coming together to look at a problem, ideally you will have a better chance of getting a better solution rather than a singular focus from one individual. So I subscribe to the view, which is an ancient Egyptian concept of tapping into the collective consciousness. The collective consciousness will mean, for example, I'm a lecturer at the University of the Southern Caribbean in Trinidad, and my approach to teaching is not the sage on the stage, but to tap into the brain power that exists in the class. So everybody in the class is an active contributor to the creation of knowledge. And I actively tap into them to get their perspectives. Because when we pull what is contained in the minds of all, to me, you get a stronger and better result. Of course, I will facilitate and provide guidance, but I always believe that the more we can tap into the abilities of our people, development will benefit more. For example, we have a lot of developmental challenges, whether it's Suriname, whether it's Trinidad, whether it's Guyana, the Eastern Caribbean. But those who have been elected to look after our affairs, they are not the custodian of our knowledge and our ideas. So I'm a strong believer in people's participation, consulting with citizens to have their input. In other words, if you want to create development for the people must have an input in that development. So consulting with them is very important. And creating institutions where they can participate is very critical in terms of getting, to me, the best possible outcomes. Because at the end of the day, no one group of people can solve the developmental challenges that we face in the region in South America. Now, as I continue to speak here this morning, I'm going to be referencing items that I've written in the book. When I communicated with Mr. Dennis, I told him I will speak about a bit about curriculum, but even before I say a bit about curriculum, I'm going to reference some other pieces that I think is very important for our functioning in life. Most of the persons here are pretty mature, and we have some young members in the audience. But to get ahead in life, we cannot be dismayed or daunted by failure or disappointment. So, we need to have courage. Without courage, it will be very, very difficult for us to move forward. And as Nelson Mandela once said, he said, courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to act anyhow. So I'm going to read a piece entitled Courage, and as I speak, if you want to ask any question, if you want to add a comment, but that's the style I like to operate by. You can feel free and comment, you can ask a question, and I will adjust accordingly. So I'm now going to read this piece entitled Courage. It reads as follows. Life is a mystery filled with every activity. However, do not become too consumed with self-pity. You need to carry on, no matter how long it takes for your dreams to come true. With spiritual direction and inspiration, brain power and physical vigor, your life cannot stop until you reach the top. Hold your head up high and keep on flying on until you touch the sky. Interact with the stars. You may even consider visiting Mars. But your thirst for success is a must. Non-stop, hot or cold, young or old, race on, my friend. Race on, my friend. The prize is just around the bend. So, I think this message is clear that anytime we decide to stop, well, that's the end of any prospect of achieving anything. So we need to muster that courage and give ourselves that positive start, notwithstanding what may come our way as we deal with the different issues that we deal with on a daily basis, on a personal level, at a professional level. It is very important that we exercise courage and we support the young people to build that courage in them. Because oftentimes, some adults mistakenly suggest that young people shouldn't have problems. But that's a misnomer. Young people are faced with serious challenges, and the more they can be supported, the more they can be encouraged, the more we can build that strength in them so they can demonstrate courage, we'll be giving them a fighting chance to succeed in life. Any comment on this reading so far? All right. The next item I'm going to read, and I'll just preface it before I read it. We are here this morning. We got up this morning, and that in itself was a tremendous blessing. We were able to prepare ourselves, dress ourselves, and reach here safely. That was another blessing. Oftentimes we take life for granted, right? And within life there is death. But once we have life, we must continue to live and appreciate the present that is life. I remember as a 14-year-old guy, I heard, in my opinion, one of the greatest professors, Professor Dr. Ben Buchanan, who was an Egyptologist and a professor at Cornell University, who gave a discourse on African history, but he made a reference while giving one of his speeches where he said that life is for living, death is coming anyhow. So as you are alive, concentrate on living. Because whether you are afraid of death or not, it will come. But once you have life, you have an opportunity, you have a vehicle to continue to make a contribution. So in other words, I'm saying that life is a blessing. So I'm going to read blessings now from the book Understanding. Are you blessed? Maybe, sometimes, always. Do you know that? Do you honor the Master? Are you aware of all that he has done for you? You seem so confused that you did not have time to muse. Did you know, my friend, that your birth is a blessing? Your youth, another blessing. Your development, a blessing too. Your journey to destiny, blessing also. Are you still complaining? Pause, my friend, and make use of the many blessings as time passes by. Count your blessings, name them one by one, and be thankful for what the Lord has done. We have been blessed. You are blessed. I am blessed. And every day, as you communicate with the Almighty, always acknowledge your blessings. Even the painful experiences too are blessings because they are great teachers. And we must be thankful for them. And at the end of the day, we must become better human beings and be thankful for this blessing that is called life. So, any comments or questions? All right. So that are going very well so far.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Feel free.
Because you talk about administration.
Yes, no problem.
Talk about blessings.
Right.
Every day that you see the day.
Yes.
But one thing I don't heard.
What thing you doing?
That is the big man there above. So, is giving you every day. And that is when you breathe and take it back from the nature. And you breathe back. That is a blessing too. Because if you stop that blessing of breathing, are you agree with me? He only can give the breathing. He can stop the breathing.
Well, I totally agree with you. And I will just mention something, right? You all will be aware that we have serious deforestation in the world. And in South America here, the Amazon, you know they have a serious problem with rapid rate of the cutting down of trees. So, if we're thinking of environmental conservation, we have to be responsible in growing more trees, preserving our trees, because if we destroy the trees that the Master created, I think we send in a message that we're not interested in breathing again. And then if we continue involving in industrial practices that are severely hazardous to human health, we are also compromising the breathing, that we have to breathe to survive. Without the breath of life, we are dead. But we need to keep the environment as clean as possible. And we need to play our part. So I agree with you, and I'm just adding that part to it.
I have one more to add it to, because you already mentioned that one. And that one is when you wake up every day. But there are people that are going to sleep yesterday and they don't wake up. That's why the blessing of seeing the day every day is a very much blessing.
But this is what I said.
Yes, that is what you said.
Right, so we mustn't take life for granted. Right? So when I speak to my young students, I tell them, the only time you have is now. Alright? What you can do now, never ever postpone for later. Because later may not arrive. If later arrives, you continue on your building. So this is the mentality I would like to encourage you to this mature audience. What you can do today, do to the best of your ability to have it done. Now sometimes you might plan certain things, other things may intervene, and you have to adjust your plan. If you have to adjust your plan, adjust your plan. But once you can do something, do not put it off. For example, in the academic circle, and this is an academic institution, many students at the last minute end up scrambling to complete an assignment. They had the time, but they did not prioritize and organize themselves in a manner, probably piece by piece, doing a bit every day, and at the last minute, a wild rush and march scramble, and sometimes they produce poor work because of that. Sometimes not because of a lack of ability, but they are taking time for granted. So let us do what we have to do. Let us be proactive, let us be responsible, because later may not come. Yeah.
Don't give it for tomorrow.
Don't leave it for tomorrow.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. Welcome.
Yeah, we're talking about breathing.
Right.
It's a blessing. But we are responsible for the air. Because breathing can only be a blessing if the air is not clean. It's clean.
Right.
The blessing, I say that we all have to make sure that we make sure that the air we are breathing is clean.
Of course. Well, I just said that, but I guess with my Trinidadian accent and the pace at which I speak, you didn't pick me up, right? So let me reiterate. I agree with you, and I just said that. If we, in our greed for economic advancement, do not honor, safety practices in terms of the proper disposal of waste and the kind of byproducts that might be dangerous, how we could mitigate against the dangers in the pose to human health, we will be destroying ourselves slowly but surely because the air will be so polluted. For example, China, which arguably may be the most powerful country in the world, I say arguably, right? We have a constant fog because of industrial processes, etc. But it's an ongoing trend, right? I mean, they have the technology, and I guess they're going to be working to find a solution. So whichever part of the world we are, whether government, whether tertiary institution, whether private citizens, we have a responsibility to do things that can preserve the environment. And in so way, preserve our lives. Because if we don't do those things, we are again taking life for granted. We must never ever do that. Right? So I agree. Yeah?
I have a question here. I've written it to make it clear across. So I'm going to read it.
Yes.
You described yourself earlier as a global person.
Yes.
At the same time, your appearance seems to reflect a distinct cultural identity and tradition. How do you see the relationship between being globally oriented and remaining culturally rooted?
A beautiful question, right? Now, Suriname is a pretty diverse place, like Trinidad. And two major groups in Trinidad, Africans, Indians, we have Syrians, Douglas, we have Caucasian, Chinese, and I know we have a nice mix too, right? And one of the things that we must always encourage is knowledge of our ethnic identity, but it must not be at the expense of national unity and global progress. In other words, if you do not have a proper understanding of who you are, in an ethnic sense, in a national sense, in a spiritual sense, it means you will be on shaky ground. Because if you don't have that deep self-awareness of who you are, how will you be able to relate comfortably with other groups in the society? Right? For progress to take place, you must have all different groups, regardless of ethnic differences, cultural differences, working together. So in other words, you who were born in Suriname, you are Suriname citizens. However, you may have a particular ethnic heritage that you must be proud of, that you must know, and that you must demonstrate, but not from the point of view of being ethnocentric, in terms of feeling that your cultural things are superior to others. So being a global citizen is easy for me in that I have a sense of humanity. I appreciate humanity in all its diversity. Because God, and I have a poem in the book about that, God is the master architect. So because he's such a beautiful architect, he didn't create everything looking the same. So although we may look differently, we are fundamentally the same. We are human. We have the same organs, the same circulatory system. So we have to rise above those petty differences and recognize that we are all part of the human family and we must work together. The more we resist working together, it will be more difficult for development to take place. So to me, it's very easy. Know who you are, but knowing who you are is not to feel that you are better or that you should not work with others. Because it's through unity we will really get the progress that we really need to get. So I trust I answered the question.
In relation to your answer,
Yeah.
I would like to know what is the central theme in one or two sentences. What is the core idea you hope readers will take away
From the book? Right. One of the core things about the different offerings I have here, because it's multi-theme, is that one, you have the capacity to become what you decide you want to become, and in a positive sense. Right? To become what you have to become, you need to demonstrate certain core principles. You need to be determined, you need to be focused, you need to be disciplined, you need to work hard, and you need to trust the process. So these are some of the core principles in a number of the offerings that I've spoken about. The identity issue, I have addressed topics that speak to that also. I also speak to the fact that people should have a responsibility to making their lives better, their communities better, their nations better, and the world better. So I am appealing to people to exercise that responsibility. I'm also appealing through the book to demonstrate those core values that will make your life a better life. Because at the end of the day, the Almighty have given you the tools, but you need to exercise the tools to make it possible. Yeah?
Okay, one more question and close it.
No problem.
There's something just playing now in our community, and I don't heard that one because
In your community in Suriname?
in one of the districts,
Yeah.
talking about environment, and you said that if you don't look at your environment, that lady there talk also about that. And there is action on that now, where the community stand up. How you can tell us about that one, that you must come in action if the government just don't listen? Because they look at the big money of the multinationals, and it goes on a company, I'm going to call it Halliburton,
Right.
in the district of Wanica,
Right.
and the community stand up. And they said, from your radioactive
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Well,
Poison is there,
right.
and we don't want that.
Well, that is a...
How you agree about that? That the people must stand up and go in action.
Right. So that's a beautiful question. And if you listen carefully to me earlier on, I talk about believing in people's consultation and people's participation. Right? Now, oftentimes we have a top-down approach to development. Right? People in political office, they normally prescribe and tell citizens what should be done and how it should be done. And sometimes it may not necessarily be in their best interest. So when a community is seeing the danger that they're being subjected to, and they have stood up to say, no, we are human and our life worth something, we have to take a different approach. That community must be applauded. Now, when we are stand up, it doesn't mean we must be using curse words. It doesn't mean we must be getting on violently. We must have a clear understanding of the problem. We must have a clear idea of what solutions can be. And we must be prepared to engage in a professional way with the authorities. But if they insist on doing something that is dangerous, we owe it to ourselves to take a stand. We need to mobilize people to understand, look, it's not only will be affected now, but in the future. Unborn children, right? Because radioactive material, for example, radioactive effects from the Second World War is still felt up to now. So when these mad leaders, as we are all aware of, is suggesting and hinting and talking about nukes and that kind of thing, we have to be very, very concerned. Because we wouldn't survive. We wouldn't survive this time. We wouldn't survive. We wouldn't last long at all. So people in authority should always consult and be straight, right? Oftentimes, leaders are not straight with citizens, all right? Oftentimes, how to put it, deals below the table, above the table, however they take place. Sometimes people look at their personal enrichment rather than the enrichment of the community. Right? So one person said corruption, we have different ways we could talk about it, but we should always exercise. Now that's what the book here. We must exercise our responsibility to make this place a better place. When things are not in our best interest, you must lift your voices. You must lift your feet. But beside all of that, you must have a plan. It's one thing to march. It's one thing to say things. But what is your plan that you can propose? So once we organize people and tell them to stand up, we must always come up with an alternative plan. And we can support with data and good logic as to why this is the plan we would like to do.
Calling this one. Because if you don't stop it early, at the beginning, because we are talking about oil and gas, that is a company that's going to distribute things to the oil and gas offshore. And offshore is new for Suriname. We already have onshore.
Onshore drilling.
Yeah, I think 45 years of experience. But we have experience with the Suriname too. 100 years mining. Look what they live here. 100 years behind in the environment.
So you have a historical situation that is a reference. And then I am from Trinidad and Tobago, and Trinidad and Tobago, as you know, is also an oil and gas producing nation for over 100 years. Alright? And there have been a number of environmental mishaps, oil spills in the ocean, thousands of fish being killed. There were instances where communities had to evacuate because they couldn't cook, they couldn't breathe, So that environmental responsibility is a very serious thing. The authorities should take it seriously, and the citizens must ensure that they take it seriously, because they will be obviously compromising your future if you don't act, and don't act in an intelligent manner and in a sensible way, right, to deal with that situation.
We have problems like that, what you been talking about. For fish and that sort of things. At the interior, at the boat companies. that are there in the water are spilling quick.
Right.
They can use the fish anymore.
Yeah, because the mercury content is high and
Yeah,
it's dangerous for human health, damages the brain, you know, so the people have to act, and we have to have a combination of academics, we have to activists, concerned citizens working together. You see, when we have this separation, we weaken our force and power. An academic mustn't just be the teach and research, but also work along with the community, with the industry, ideally. Right? It's one thing to be well published, but all the things that were well published, what difference did it make to making your nation a better nation, a stronger nation? You know? So it is very important. In terms of time, how much time I have again? I don't want to overstep.
Yeah.
You have time still?
Yeah.
Sorry. All right. So any other questions? For later. All right? All right. So, since I mentioned I will talk a bit about CARICOM, I don't know if it's a topic you have any interest in hearing about. Do you want to hear a bit about CARICOM?
Yeah. Sure.
All right. Let me read the poem, and then we will talk, right? And let me know if you agree with the sentiments of the poem or not, right? So this poem is entitled CARICOM. CARICOM, carry God. When I wrote it, it was 43 years, so in 1973 to now, that would be 53 years, right? When the Treaty of Shagarama was signed in 1973, so that would be 53 years old, right? So after 53 years, it is not a nice state of affairs to see how CARICOM is flirting with destiny. Summit after summit in big fancy places, declarations and pronouncements evermore. But the average man and woman on the streets of CARICOM countries basically remain poor. So what conclusions can we draw about this situation? Though CARICOM exists in name and holding regular meetings, these CARICOM officials can certainly do more. Otherwise, it will be true to say, not CARICOM, but CARIGON. Though those big timers have left the Caribbean nations for far too long, it is more than time they improve their performance. Some of the leaders are referencing here were leaders at the time. Comrade Ralph, Sister P, and Kamala, she's now back in power in Trinidad. Mitchell, Frondel, you could add Dr. Ali in Guyana, and the rest of the CARICOM crew. Please give us something more upon which to chew. I know you may say we have not walked in your shoes, but I am convinced we are not getting true dollar value, but rather a whole set of sentimentality. As a consequence, I don't find this thing making much sense, and I have to really conclude it is not CARICOM, but CARIGON. So, do we still have CARICOM? Yes, we still have it. Are we making any kind of progress we should make as a regional institution? And the answer is no. Some years ago, they spoke about the CARICOM single market and economy. There have been a lot of discussions, but as it stands now, there's a lot of restrictions for fellow CARICOM and associate CARICOM members to trade with each other. You know, you talk about the free movement of people and goods and services, that is still a challenge, that is still an issue. All right? As a small region, you know, if we cannot achieve, you know, unity that is functional, unity that could really make a difference. For example, Guyana alone is 83,000 square miles. Where's Suriname? Where's the measurement in Suriname? Guyana is 83,000 square miles. I learned that since some school days. But Suriname is a very big country anyhow, way bigger than Trinidad and Tobago. There's a lot of land in Guyana, there's a lot of land in Suriname. And there have been discussions in the past of other nations combining with Guyana, Suriname, etc., in terms of producing the food that we so badly need in the region. Most CARICOM countries have an extremely high import bill. Alright? And any country that is importing food to that extent, we are in serious trouble. We all went through COVID, right? And because of the logistic challenges, etc., and the longer, lengthier times for goods to be transferred, food prices went up astronomically. Alright? Even in the current situation, with the conflict between Iran and the US, already prices around the world have been affected. You know? So I'm saying, if nations cannot feed themselves, we're in serious trouble. And to me, to make that happen shouldn't be that difficult. Why all the bureaucracy? Why not make it happen? If we truly love the people of the region and their welfare, it is so critical. And in most CARICOM countries, agriculture is what? Scantily treated. The budgetary allocations for agriculture, very small. Farmers struggle in terms of the kind of support that they need. So we have to do much better. You follow? We have to make regional travel easier, less costly. We have to produce the food we need. We have to bring our different strengths together and make life better for the citizens of the region. Now, informally, citizens on their own do attempt to, forge linkages. For example, my visit here, besides doing this book signing, was an attempt to forge cultural linkages. Right? A couple months ago, we established a Trinidad and Tobago Suriname Cultural Assembly, where we started to have online meetings with cultural people. All right? And two of the representatives on the group from Suriname suggested at some point we should visit and try to meet key stakeholders so that we could facilitate, laying the foundation where we can promote, the rich cultural, talent that we have in the region and make it, worthwhile for performers, for researchers, etc. Where people can, have a better chance of making a living through cultural products and services. And cultural products and services is very difficult in CARICOM, South America, etc. to make a living. But potentially it can. And that too is an area that needs greater focus. So when I support culture, informally, people have made attempts, but we need a collective effort to really make it stronger. So the leaders have failed in terms of making CARICOM useful. The citizens have tried, but we're still in a very dicey situation in that if we do already come together functionally, well then we are defeating our own selves. Any questions or comments?
Yes, I see that you have lots of concerns about politicians in the Caribbean or in the world. What do you have for concerns about them?
My concern about them?
Yes.
Well, one of the fundamental concerns, I don't want to talk in absolute terms, because, it's easy to say everybody corrupt. That's an easy statement to me. I don't want to make that statement. But what I can say is that, citizens have not been treated in a way that they matter. That's for sure. Because the greatest concern that we see, and I will use a CARICOM as an example, the greatest interest that politicians show in citizens are around election time. Because every vote counts, whether they will get in office or remain in office. If that is the case, no problem, but what is the work you're doing on their behalf to make their life better? Now, I am also of the view that people mustn't just wait on politicians, as the guy was saying a while ago. People must have a responsibility on their own to do what they can. Right? So I know in some communities in Trinidad, sometimes they call in the authorities to do certain things, and it ain't happening, and the people use the talents in the community. They pull money, make time available, right? Material available, so the road was a problem, and they fix the road for themselves. Every community might not have people that resource in that manner, but people must do what they can do without depending on waiting on a politician to make it happen for them. Politicians should really create an enabling environment. But oftentimes the enabling environment is for themselves to become richer and not necessarily promoting the development of citizens.
But like you said, the politicians are leaders that are being chosen democratically. So they have something to do when they wake up. And they're doing something that they're supposed to do.
So like I would
what
suppose.
is the problem?
I like the word suppose. There are things that they're supposed to do, but it is not happening. But as I will repeat myself again, right? People must hold them to account, right? And people must insist that they do what they're supposed to do. And where possible, what you as citizens can do, yes, they must ensure that they do. So it's twofold. You hold them accountable because they ask for support, you said you can do it. At least be honest with the citizens and leveling with them. If politicians level and engage citizens and share with them truly what is happening, if they have challenges, the people will treat them far differently. But if you're not reporting to them, not accounting to them, because most of them when they get the authority, they feel when they don't have to account until they want support again. So my message is, all right, hold them accountable, but you do what can be done, as small as it may be. Do what you can do to make your community better. Right? Yeah.
I think an important part of to be able to change anything, in the first place you need a better education, so that creates awareness.
Right.
And I think a lot of people in this country are not totally aware of what they can do to affect any change.
All right. That's
So
very...
education is a very important part.
Right.
Because they are the leaders, the politicians are democratically chosen.
Well, you know,
So the people wants them, and they're not doing the people's job.
that's it. You know, that's all.
What's the problem?
All right, so that's all. Another question is very good, right? So let me first address some statements, right? Education is not just getting 5 CSEC passes and CAPE and going on to university. That's a small part of education, right? The education system in the region have been failing in terms of addressing core areas of education. For example, civic responsibility. What is your responsibility as a citizen to national development? How many institutions focus on that at all? If you check it out, it might be very few, if any, that really make a concerted effort in building a sense of national consciousness and responsibility among citizens. And the best time to do it is young, right? Because we know in Japan, in China, they identify talent from young, and they may spot an engineer from 5-6 years. And they give all the support to ensure that that person becomes the best possible engineer in the future. So we need to have education because people have responsibility. You must know your responsibility, and you must know how to execute that responsibility. You follow? But if nobody is even trying to educate them about it, it's not everybody on their own will feel that obligation or show that responsibility to do something. Some people will need a little prodding, educating, and pushing. So I agree with you totally, right? Basic things like, how to conduct yourself as a human being in life, how to function in life. For example, you have many people, many persons, right? If their car breaks down, there's a colloquial statement they use in Trinidad, they're like fish out of water. To catch a bus, to catch a taxi, sometimes that's a great challenge. In other words, they cannot still be productive even though they have that challenge. Yes, you can go to the mechanic, etc., etc. But I'm saying, that kind of adaptability to life, that kind of flexibility, you need to educate people how to function. Right? And my brother once said, a professor of his degree had told him, we were discussing what is an educated person. Right? And And he said, if you put a man in the middle of the forest and he can find his way or her way, that is a highly educated person.
But then the education system is not right, because the whole world is turning upside down. The whole world has leaders that's not supporting the community.
But this is just it. So the education system has failed, it continues to fail, but those of us who are in it, we must do what we can do, even though structurally it might be an issue. For example, when I'm in the classroom, I do not only teach psychology, I teach about human development, I teach about responsibility, I teach that consciously, but I just do my part in that context. And then beside that, I have always been active in the community. So I'm not just a teacher talking about development, I have been actively involved in community work from a young boy to a grown man today, and still is involved in it. So I am walking the talk and supporting what I preach. We had a great academic out of Guyana, Dr. Walter Rodney. You may agree or disagree with his ideology, but one of the good things about him, he didn't sit in the university. He went on the ground. And we have this famous book, Grounded with My Brother. He went to the common person and tried to educate them, encourage them, and was involved with them. I mean, I commend him for demonstrating that kind of responsibility. So as I said before, an academic must not only be a researcher and a writer and a teacher, but they must work together. Because if you put that academic skill with the talents of the community and you work together, we will have a better chance. But if you don't want to be published alone and have a nice lecture session, that is going to be not going fine. But at the end of the day, it has to be within you. If that is not within you, it will be difficult to do. If you don't see it that way, it will be very difficult to do that. But I will always encourage that, because we have to make a difference.
So what they suggest is to change the system, the education system, to change it,
Okay.
to be to produce more intellectuals that are functional
Right.
for the people.
We need, first of all, we need to have a genuine interest in wanting to see that a change or changes take place. We must first of all have that general interest. We must first of all engage the stakeholders. Right? Because we have to engage people, hear their thoughts, hear their ideas. And in the Caribbean, we have had many things like that, and at the end of the day, sometimes nothing will change. So there must be that commitment to take small steps after consulting. So we have to talk with academics, we have to talk with farmers, we have to talk with sportsmen, we have to talk with students, we have to talk with all people concerned, because education is not just in the classroom. Education is throughout, everywhere, right? Every moment is an opportunity to learn. So we have to bring all those people together and have conversations. But those who could put something structurally in place must have that genuine interest. You can do it to say they did it, and then nothing takes place. You follow? So there are a number of organizations in different countries, the grassroots education, they do little developmental programs, and then there are challenges with funding. But nonetheless, at least they're trying. But we need a more cohesive approach. Now, 13 years ago, I did a fellowship at the University of Toronto in Canada. And I was impressed in that they have a lot of research going on, and they have a very close working relationship with NGOs and industry. I found that marvelous. They actually look for the findings coming out from the academic circles, and they use it. They use those findings in their programs. We need to encourage that synergy, right? Because what is the sense of it just in a shell? What is the sense? You went 25 conferences, you're well published, but all of that great work is not making a difference in it. To me, it doesn't make sense. So we need that kind of approach as a start.
But I think to do all these things, you need to have very strong institutions.
Correct.
Because what you say about the common market is, I think 30 years we speak in Suriname and Guyana has the capacity
Right.
to be the
Red basket.
but you need an institution to bring these people together and realize it, because the government is not thinking about this. They are only thinking of the next election.
Yes, yes.
So we are always saying the NGOs, they have to be the people to carry on.
Yes.
Because I know that Barbados, Mia Motley,
Yeah.
she wanted to work together with
Guyana.
Guyana, and it was also always the idea of the philosophy of the former president.
Right.
What's his name again?
Ranger. David Ranger.
No,
Former president of Guyana. David
Yeah,
Ranger.
Guyana he was with Burnham.
Burnham time.
Yeah, the opposite.
Jagan.
Jagan.
Yeah.
His dream was Suriname and Guyana work together
Yeah.
and produce a lot of agriculture.
Right.
But if your institutions are too weak,
Yes, correct.
you can't do anything.
You're totally correct. So we need a very strong institution.
Yes.
But
And
what is the commitment towards building this institution? Sometimes the commitment is weak.
Well, that's why
So-
there are organizations abroad
Yeah.
who can help you.
Right.
But third world people, we don't like to write.
Right. So let me support you with something here, right? There is I am also involved in the cooperative movement. I'm involved in credit union, I'm involved in a non-financial cooperative, right? There's a cooperative in Spain called the Mondragon Corporation. Right? They were formed when Spain was going through a serious recession. Right? They are one of the most powerful business entities in Spain today. This is not governmental. This is people working in the best interest, identifying common needs. And they have built a range of businesses in all sectors. And they have become a force. So, and you can research it. The Mondragon Corporation in Spain, research it. They employ hundreds of thousands of workers, right, in different sectors. And they were established at a time when Spain was going through a serious recession. You follow? So that is an example of what you call indigenous, that didn't depend on the action of government. So although we talk in government, we have to try to do what we can do. In other countries, sometimes they facilitate it more, you know. And in some of these countries, like entrepreneurial development, they facilitate it, they encourage it. Sometimes in the Caribbean, South America, it might be a different challenge. Sometimes people may have ideas and funding might be a challenge, etc. But I quoted Mondragon to show that things are possible. Things are quite possible. Alright? Yeah?
Yes, I would like to stress democracy.
Right, no problem.
Yes. We often say that politicians must do what they promise, and citizens must be educated and responsible.
Right.
But if leaders are democratically elected, what exactly do we mean by democracy?
Well,
The will of the majority, the quality of decision making, or informed participation of citizens?
well, this is a beautiful question, right? And this is what we have been grappling with in the little discussion here. Having an election and elected people, most of the people say it's democratic. That's very limited, right? Because you elect them, how they function mightn't be in the most pleasant manner. What is your recourse? Do citizens have the right to recall? Are there institutions where citizens could really exercise their authority? For example, one time I used to do a lot of writing on Facebook and stuff. And one of the arguments I made in one of my articles was that, every country have a national budget, Every country has a budget, annual budget that they pass in parliament, right? Right. The people in parliament is the ones who debate and vote on it, right? The people will be affected. Do they have a vote? They have no vote. So I have advocated that, look, we could set up constituent assemblies and give the legislative crowd where at least citizens of each community or some citizens, whatever structure they put in place, will also have a vote. Because at the end of the day, whatever decisions are made will affect them. But you, the citizens, you have no vote whatsoever to decide how national development proceeds. But do the politicians want to burden power so? Most times not. They don't want to do that. But if there is that commitment, if there is that real belief in democracy, well then you'll be willing to spread it out to give people the opportunity to participate. To even give people the respect to consult with them. Or sometimes when they consult is after people make noise, they come and have a meeting. That's not consultation. But if you generally come and consult with them and get their feedback and their ideas, etc., and give them the opportunity to function and make it happen, but then there's a big difference. That would be a big departure from the norm. Right? So, we are a long way from that, but I'm simply saying to you, if you believe that it should be so, do whatever little you can do. You might be able to change the world, but you might be able to change something. Whether it's Anton become, whether it's in Paramaribo, whether it's in some other part of Suriname, do what you could do. Right? The mature people who have knowledge, pass on the knowledge. 5 minutes again? Right. So I've been speaking a good while, and the discussion has been very engaging. I appreciate it. I value it. And the book, I would be happy if you could support the book. It's $15 US, a copy. So if you could get your copy before you leave, that would be highly appreciated. And anybody here from the library? Right. So I will do a presentation of 2 copies to the library in a short while for their library, because the support they have given me, I can't repay them in monetary terms for the support. But at least I can leave what I wrote about so that people could reflect on it. Right? So if there are no other questions, I will just read one other poem and then I will conclude. Any other question?
Yes. I always wonder if democracy can function in a poor country.
A poor country?
Yes. What I mean, when you're poor, you are dependent of the people who have the poverty. So they will buy you food.
Yes.
Is that democracy?
That could never be democracy. But it's a very critical point you made. You follow? And it ties back to the whole point. Many people feel that they are totally dependent on their politicians. That is a bad mindset. That's a bad idea.
It's not bad.
Right?
It's life-saving.
Right? So the citizens, need to be educated to know, that it should just be a mere tool and just dependent and everything is based on them. Right? Because most of the time when they give the vote, they really don't have the institution that will allow them to act in a way to support the government. So when you talk about building institutions, that is so crucial. But you have to build institutions to give them a meaningful say. If you don't build an institution where they have a meaningful say, then what kind of institution is that? They will still be the women fancies of the elected representatives.
If you're poor, that's why I say you need the people who should be sure to have bread on their table. Because you can, for instance, in Suriname, people are educated, but they don't have the money to live the life they wanted to live.
Right, so this is what I say, there's 2 ways.
Yes,
two ways to do it. Cooperative is one option. You could build, the people who have what they have to come together and create something for themselves. In that way, you're not just depending on what government could do. So if you have academic talent, you have some people with finance, you have people who can organize, if they come together and pool those resources, just like the Mondragon Corporation, and the other examples of the world, they can do something for themselves. And it won't be a question of whether the MP or this one authorize it, they will be able to do something. All right? So time is cutting short here now. So I'll just wrap up. I'll read this one. And this last poem here is tidying to what we have been discussing. It is entitled Power. Right? According to the great U.S. leader, Frederick Douglass, a man without force is lacking the essential ingredients of human dignity. True or false? Or should this statement be given a round of applause? How should this statement be interpreted in the context of life in TNT, and we could say in Suriname, or universally? One's interpretation could cloud the situation or lead to some degree of illumination. A view out of the political hat may cause one to pause and reflect on the many things in this land that cause one's hairs to raise on the skin, rendering each helpless to even sport a grin. The political gerrymandering makes many believe that some politicians are committing sins in order to win. Power of itself is necessary if embellished with nobility, thereby allowing no one to be accused of a conspiracy that confines others to a life of misery. Power must reign supreme, encompassing persons of character, dignity, and impeccable integrity. It must be used wisely to uplift humanity rather than its proponents becoming entrapped in self-advocacy and diminishing the true good of society. Right? So, I will end off with that. Again, I would like to thank Ms. Rose, Mr. Chinafat, all the other officials for supporting this event. I will now do a presentation to somebody in the library of a copy or 2 copies of this book. Come, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You see that in the back.
Dames en heren, we zijn gekomen aan het formeel gedeelte, aan het afsluiten van het formeel gedeelte. Natuurlijk mag u blijven om verder in discussie te gaan met onze studenten. We have come to a close and formal conclusion for this morning, and there's still an opportunity to stay in discussion with our guest speaker. Okay, and a warm applause for our. Thank you.